Well, I don't know what that music is from, but Mr. Folks keyed it up, and he's excited to play it for you here as we start a Monday edition of the Press Pros Huddle Show. I'm Bruce Hooley. He is Sonny Folks, and we have a lot of high school football to talk about. A not so impressive Ohio State win to talk about, and Buckeye Hoops starts tomorrow night. And yes, PressProsMagazine.com will cover it. So good evening, Mr. Folks, and we have a eager analyst in the waiting room here on the Press Pros broadcast, ready to.
I would imagine we do have an eager analyst in the waiting room. I know him well.
Yeah. Would you like to introduce him, or would you like to give me the honors?
Well, no, I'll tell you what. If you bring him on, I will introduce him. I call him the football savant of Press Pros Magazine. You know, the former 4-time state champion coach of the St. Henry Redskins.
And there he is.
And I don't think you can ask for better for what we've got planned for him tonight than Tim Beckman. Coach, good to see you.
Good to see you guys also. It's an excellent week. It's a fun week, and we're getting down to the nitty-gritty now of high school football.
Yes, we are. 16 teams in each region.
We sure are, and that's why we have you. We need a little nit, and we need a little grit tonight.
Oh, funny.
Oh, hey, I know, everybody, it's cliche. They talk about this being your time of year. And if you're a high school football fan across the state of Ohio, and all you got to do is look, and I showed Bruce this before. Here's a list of questions we got over the weekend. We talk about this all the time of people who read Press Pros. Press Pros have been around. This is our 12th year, as you know. Of doing what we do, and now we're read in all 88 counties, and we get this mail from Lake County, Geauga County, Trumbull County, Williams County. I don't even know where Williams County is. Wood County, Hancock, Putnam, all these places, Tim, as you well know, because we talk almost every day, of people who read our coverage on Friday and Saturday nights, and then write to us on Sunday because the Browns or the Bengals are losing and they're disenchanted with that. So they write to us, what do you think about this team or that team? And we have some great questions. I've got some to pose to you tonight here from people who are just kind enough to, I guess, assume that we know what we're talking about for what we write on Friday and Saturday night. Your comments, please.
Well, I'll tell you, like you said, I hope we assume we know but it's that time of the year where these teams now are going into week 13, and I was looking through today, and I think we have a 14 seed and 11 seed, and basically all the other regions are made up in most cases of the 1, 2, 3, and 4s, and you mix in some 5, 6, 7, and 8s and 9s, and we're there now where I feel we need to be. We can talk about this all night too, about the 16 teams and where that took us to, but we're here now, the week of high school football, where it's as I said, the nitty gritty, and it's going to be exciting. There's a lot of great games to talk about this evening.
Well, Tim, right out of the chute, let me bring here's from Ryan in Montgomery County. Mm-hmm. He said, "Are you ready? You guys are ready to admit you're wrong, Bruce?" He said, "Are you guys ready to admit you're wrong about limiting the state tournament to 8 or 12 teams per region? Some of the 13s and the 14 are winning." Yep. Isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Give everybody a shot at knocking off Goliath. I've got some stats here to say, hey, Ryan, not enough Davids and Goliaths, maybe, but, he makes a good point. I'm sure, Tim, there's people out there. You're a former coach, athletic director, right in the middle of the stew. I'm sure there's some people out there to say, see, I told you so. This is good for kids.
I agree with you to a point there, what they talk about, but as you said, it doesn't matter if you're going to let them all in, you're going to let 16, 8, 12, whatever we talked about. You're always going to have upsets. But as you said, there's not very many out there anymore. I think there's 114 and 111. So that just kind of tells you, where you're at. But it is what it is. We had the 16, we're down to the 4 in each region now, and there's going to be some great games this week.
So I did a little math here, and I wrote down last week after the first round, I wanted to see if we were right or wrong on the ones and two seeds playing 15s and 16s. So in Division 2, all right, so the smallest the second biggest schools, all the scores of the 1s versus 16s and the 2 versus 15s, the average score of that game was 41-10. The average score. There was one 15 that scored 28 points, another one that scored 20. The rest of them were just absolute blowouts. 57-0, on and on and on and on. The 1s were more lopsided against the 15s and the 16s. Now, your emailer, I forget, what's his name?
Ryan.
He's not wrong in that there were a fair amount, more than I expected, of double-figure seeds that won games. They did. So the question becomes, we're not wrong or right, and Ryan's not wrong or right. The question is, you're going to get a lot of blowouts in round 1. Are the number of blowouts you get worth the 6, 7, 8 teams that are double-figure seeds who win in the first round? And that's not a question that has a binary answer, yes or no. That's a preference thing. Like, do you want to see a couple double-figure seeds in the second round and deal with a bunch of blowouts? Or do you want to eliminate the possibility of double-figure seeds reaching the second round and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 maybe reaching the Sweet 16 and swallow the blowouts along the way? I'd prefer to have a system where you earn your way in as a top 8, and that's it. That's what my preference is. How about you guys?
That's the way I felt that way all along. You know, I was there when it started out years ago with, I believe they started out with 2, then it went to 4, then it went to 8. You know, the coaches won at 12 this year, and they went to 16. Last year they had everybody. I personally feel 8 is the perfect number. And I think we saw that last week with the games and the types of games that we saw. As I said again, it doesn't matter what you let in, you're going to have upsets. We all know that. You're going to have some teams that are going to sneak in. But overall, my personal preference, 8 is a perfect number.
Well, let's get into some results, because we've talked this to no end, and I don't want to short shrift us tonight on talking about teams. Sonny, did you have a final point you wanted to make?
Well, I'm just going to say here, here's some numbers that Chris Cron sent me off of Joe Itel. Out of 232 games, 49 shutouts in round 1. 49 shutouts. 20 games of 40 points or more margin. 40 games of 30 points or more. 49 shutouts?
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a bunch.
That's a lot.
That's a bunch. I think that's about as much as you need to kind of conjure a little bit about is, look, have we overshot this thing by 16? And I'm going to tell you another thing, and I realize, and I don't think it's any secret, we've talked about, Doug Ute's been on the show a couple of times with us, and we know that there's a need to raise some money. You know, that's part of it. But, hey, look, I saw Laughlin's game with New Bremen last week, and they brought 20 people from Laughlin. 20 people. I saw Piqua's game 2 weeks ago with Little Miami, and I don't think they had 70 people in the stands. And the stands, Tim, you've been to Piqua. We've all been to Piqua. Those stands, there's seats 4,000 people on each side of the field. So, look, nobody's making any money on it when nobody shows up. Now, Withrow did bring a better crowd last Friday night, to be fair, and Piqua had a better crowd. Piqua had about, I would say they had 2,500 people there. So that's a representative crowd. Still not a great crowd, for a town that prides itself as being a football town. But honestly, there is a point where you could have too much cake. And when you have cake all the time, it's not good. You don't want cake anymore. And I think this is what you run the risk when you have 16 teams. It's not special to get in anymore. It's inclusive. It's participation. Everybody gets a trophy. It's Bruce's favorite term. It's woke. It's political correctness. It's just, it has lost some of its savor when you don't have to go 8-2 or 7-3 or something. at least have a requisite number of competitive wins to get into the playoff. And to Ryan's point, are you willing to admit that you guys are wrong? Nobody's wrong necessarily or right. It's just not, it doesn't feel, Tim, like it used to feel when you go to the playoffs, when you consider some of these games on Friday and Saturday night.
I agree 100%. It's just not really that special, I think, in a lot of cases. They're happy to be there. Let's go play. And it's just not, I don't think it's what football is all about. I really don't.
Well, let's talk about the matchups that we have. We've made our opinion known on that. And I forgot to say at the beginning, and I certainly I'm remiss in forgetting to say that we are presented by our friends at visitcanton.com. And we are going to be visiting Canton. You better believe it, for the state high school finals, December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Game on the 2nd, 3 on the 3rd, and 3 more on the 4th. And if you want to see the best football played in each division, you'll be there. Get a hotel room, eat at the great restaurants in Canton, take some time between games to visit the attractions. You'll find out all about it at visitcanton.com, along with a special discount to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which is adjacent to Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. And we hope that we will see you there, because we cannot wait for it. We're looking forward to it. So let's start in Division 7, right where you are, Tim. St. Henry, 6th seed. The Redskins have played very well, 42-9 and 34-0 so far. They take on Tri-Village. Tri-Village showed me something by taking out the defending state champion New Bremen, fell behind 21-0, and came back behind Braden Keating, their fill-in quarterback for Lane Sarver. They continue to hope they can get Lane Sarver cleared from his broken collarbone against Troy Christian in the season opener. But Keating got it done with a lot of help from Reed Ware on Saturday night. Tri-Village and St. Henry. What do you think of that matchup?
Tell you, I think it's a you've got a team in Tri-Village. And first of all, let's give a shout out to that coach at Tri-Village. You know, he's done an excellent job. Coach Burke.
Yep, Robert Burke.
You lose Lane Sarver week 1, and you come back and you get the type of season and the new quarterback, and what a great job he's done with that football team. I think he started varsity football in 2016, if I remember right. Yep. So they've done a fantastic job. I think what you've got here, you've got St. Henry, ball control, playing solid defense right now. I think they held Troy Christian the other night to roughly 50 yards total offense. And you've got Tri-Village, where for what I've seen, I haven't actually seen them play yet, but what you read about them, a lot of big plays, a lot of speed. So you kind of got that immovable object, and you've got that speed factor. And I kind of go back to that situation. When you're playing teams like that, you got to avoid that big play, and you got to avoid turnovers. And that's what hurt New Bremen the other night. They gave up some big plays. They had some turnovers late in the game. And I think it's going to be a great ball game. I really do. And the only thing I question, we can talk about that, there is the site where they're going to. I don't get that. When you
Lima Bath. Yeah,
Lima Bath. 2 teams that far north. But, you know, it is what it is. I always said when I coached, you can send me anywhere as long as we're in there and we're playing. But you know, I think it's going to be a great matchup, you know, and you got the MAC going against them, and it's going to be real interesting.
Well, and it plays right into that argument about inclusion and getting more teams and giving an opportunity, because I think 20 years ago, it would be, Tri-Village would not have gotten that kind of a shot, an opportunity to play St. Henry in the 3rd round of the playoffs like they're getting to do this year. And I think this is what the people who advocate this expansion and getting more teams a shot to come out and play, an opportunity. This is, in the old days, this would not have happened. I don't think so. So
what do you mean? Tri-Village is a 2. Why would they not have gotten a chance?
Well, I'm not sure. In the old days of 8 teams in a region, and I look, there were only six divisions back then. There are 7 now. Football, there's no question, is more watered down now than what it was a decade ago, Tim. We know that. We've talked about that all the time. There's still people out there who say we need to go back to 6 divisions and make it a little bit tougher, make it a little bit more like what it used to be, make it more competitive, however you want to describe it. I'm not sure in 2010 or 12, when we first started covering the playoffs on Press Pros Magazine, that Tri-Village would be in a position that they're in now, because, as Tim said, they've only been playing varsity football for a half a dozen years or so. So
5 years,
this,
5 years
this,
under Robert Burke.
yeah, this plays right into that argument of people who say, we need to have more opportunity. It's like the coach from Lockland who said, hey, our kids, are sitting down there. They didn't get to play. They lost 3 games this year. We just wanted to play. We didn't think we were going to do very well when we came up here, but our kids just wanted to play. They just wanted to get out of town, have a nice ride out up north on the interstate and get home by midnight. And is that something that represents Ohio high school football in its best sense or fullest sense? Probably not. But to the point of people saying more kids need to get more opportunity to experience the playoff experience, so be it.
We lost Coach Beckman there for a second. Hopefully his internet will hook back up, and we'll bring him back on the show. The other game of note for us in Division 7 is, of course, Marion Local, the top seed, the number 1 team in the state of Ohio, 12-0. They're taking on Riverside. You got to look at Riverside a couple weeks ago when they played Milton Union, Sonny, for the TRC championship. Milton won that game handily as Coach Beckman rejoins us now. Marion and Riverside, that game is at Sydney on a Saturday night. I expect Marion to win the game just because I expect Marion to win the state in Division 7. So that's not any great bold prediction on my part.
Well, let me say this. I'm going to talk about Riverside, and then I'm going to let Coach talk about Marion Local because he's known about Marion Local longer than I have. Riverside, Bryce Hodge is the coach up there. And he told me last year after they lost to Marion Local, and I think it was 48-6 or something like that. He said, the best thing we get out of this is we got to see them play, Coach. We got to see how they warm up, how they prepare, what their crowd, what their atmosphere is like, what the environment's like. We want to take some of that home and incorporate that into what we do. And if we can do that, we can get better. And I was impressed with them when I saw them 2 weeks ago against Milton Union. They didn't win, but they've got a playmaking quarterback. They've got a couple of players that are complementary in the fact that they can beat you down the field. They got a hard-nosed running back. They got a kid that can go out and play, make plays in the passing game. Are they going to be favored? No, they're not going to be favored to beat Marion Local. But, they have made strides. I saw them play last year. They're a better football team this year. Now, you can talk about Marion.
Hey, you talk about Marion Local, Coach Goodwin. They're solid. They're very well coached. They just do things so well. And this is the time of year, and Sonny, you mentioned you watched them play last weekend, that this is the time of year where they thrive on. And they have some tough injuries throughout the year. They've gotten everything. They got some kids back, and now they're at the point. They got a playmaker in Peyton Oddie at quarterback, excellent defense, solid kicking games. And to beat Marion Local, you got to play, in essence, that perfect football game. And you can't beat yourself. You can't make mistakes. And I know I've heard a lot of good things about Riverside also. And I think this could be an interesting ball game early and just see how things progress throughout the game. But, Marion's, they're going to be tough. Wherever they go now, they're solid.
Their defense is so good.
I was surprised, Sonny, how open Tim Goodwin talked about, their long-term goals on Saturday night. I've always, in my limited exposure to Coach Goodwin on this show and talking to him a couple of times, I expected him to be more guarded about that and not, get ahead of himself, which I'm not saying he is, but I just thought he'd stay in the moment right there. But I like that, actually. I like the fact that he's made no bones about the fact that that's their goal this year, probably fed by how close they came a year ago, or they felt they did by playing New Bremen so tough and then watching New Bremen go on ahead and win it.
Yeah, well, what he said was to make, just for the sake of accuracy, he said, hey, we got to win one game at a time. He always says that, but he did make the statement the other night, hey, look, we're appreciating this experience now week by week because we had it taken away from us last year. And it was just a block punt that turned the game around in the regional semifinal with New Bremen. And, that happens sometimes. Coach, you've lost games like that too on a happenstance or a play that you don't prepare for, you don't think about. And, you could tell that he's appreciating every one of these games this year. Like I think I wrote in an endangered species that it's, you can't take anything for granted. And to your point about that, he did sound a little bit different last. At least he was more open about it. And I think every coach really thinks in those terms. It's just whether they verbalize it or not.
Now, we got a couple Facebook messages coming in, and you guys can message us on Facebook, and we'll get your comment or question on the air. Josh on Riverside says they have an outstanding player and a young man named Shockey from Piqua who moved to Riverside. He's doing big things this season for Riverside. I'll take your word for it on that one. Keith Brooks says he's still in mourning down here in South Florida since my New Bremen Cardinals were eliminated in both volleyball and football, but I'm pulling for the MAC teams and betting the ranch that 2 state champs will be crowned in football and 1 in volleyball, and he says possibly 3 in football. So we've got 2 in the running in Division 4 in volleyball. We've got New Knoxville and St. Henry. They play in the semifinals on Thursday at the Nutter Center. And we still have, I think, obviously, Coldwater's got a really good shot in Division 6. Marion Local's got a really good shot. St. Henry, maybe they're this year's New Bremen. Who knows? And Anna's still in it, hanging right in there in Division 6. Let's move to Division 6. Coldwater, I say, is in it. They play the top seed in Mechanicsburg. I've seen Mechanicsburg. I've not seen Coldwater, but I will say I'll be surprised if Coldwater doesn't win the game.
Well, Coldwater is, again, it's kind of like Marion Local. This is their time of the year, and they thrive on this, and they're so confident this time of the year. And Coldwater has so many weapons. I was reading their article from the other night or talking to people about the game, and so many kids got touches in that ball game. They got a little threat the first week. They got challenged that first week against Delphos Jefferson. I think that kind of shocked them a little bit. It's probably one of the best things that ever happened to them. And last week they went out and they did a lot of things a lot better. A lot of kids got touches. That's a scary football team. There are so many weapons. Sonny, you've seen them. They've got speed. They play good defense. They got good kicking games. Got an excellent punter, and they're going to be a load to beat. There is no doubt about that.
Because they do spread it around, and Chip uses the term, we spread the wealth. Because they can spread it around so much, and they're so comfortable with their skilled players of putting them in space and throwing the ball. It's just like the wing tee pitching the ball in a jet sweep to them, except they're going to throw it. That tells opposing defenses we don't have that much margin for error. All it takes is one slip or one missed assignment, and they're over the top and down the pipe and in the guy's hands, and he's gone, and we're down. And, they've got the momentum in the game. And I will say this about Coldwater. Over the years, I've never seen a team play with the lead better than Coldwater does. Boy, when they get the momentum and they get on top of you, they're really hard to come back from. And you know that, Tim. Yeah,
there's no doubt. And I said, as you mentioned, they have all the weapons. They got the big tight end. They got the big wide receiver in Sweeterman. They got the speed. And so many kids can be such a threat. And it's just tough for a high school football team to defend the whole field. And that's what Coldwater makes you do. And they're going to be a tough out. There's no doubt. They're going to be a big, big challenge in Division 6.
Now, Mechanicsburg, as I said, is the number 1 seed. I got to talk a bit about them. They are one of the toughest football teams I've ever seen play, given the size of the guys who get it done for them. Aaron Conley and Jake Hurst, their quarterback and their running back, they're not guys that you'd pick out walking off the bus. They have a lineman, number 55, Levi Millage. He's 6'1", 205. If that kid does not make first team All-State on the line, there ought to be an investigation, because I saw him do in the West Jefferson game something that I've seen one other football player do ever, and it was Joey Bosa at Penn State. He took the offensive tackle and pushed him so far back into the quarterback for West Jeff that he knocked the quarterback over. And Levi Millage is a one-man wrecking crew on the lines for Mechanicsburg, and Coldwater's going to have a plan for him. He's number 55. Jake Hurst, tough running back. Conley's a really good quarterback. They can throw it. They aren't. I've not seen Coldwater, but the way you guys talk, Coldwater spreads it around. Most of the time with Mechanicsburg, it's going to be Conley or Hurst, and they make you defend that. They'll just make no bones about it. Here they come. Can you stop it? And we'll see if Coldwater can.
Well, based on what they've done before, they have played Mechanicsburg. They played the West Jeffersons. They played those teams before, and I've seen Mechanicsburg a couple years ago against them. They came out in the first half, in the first quarter, and they played that style of football. Then the other thing, and Tim, you know this, everybody respects Chip and his staff so much for the fact of in-game adjustments.
Exactly.
Boy, those guys. Hey, look, get me once, get me twice. Look, once we've seen you, it's like in baseball, the second time through the batting order, the third time for sure, you're not going to get by with that fastball right down the middle of the plate. You're going to have to change speeds. You're going to have to change the eye level. You're going to have to do something different.
Yeah, that staff is solid, and they do a great job with that. And you mentioned Mechanicsburg. I saw them play St. Henry a few years ago, and I was really impressed with the type of kids you mentioned, Bruce. They're tough. They get after it. They play hard. But as Sonny, you mentioned, Coldwater's seen these teams before, and they know what they're getting into. And it's going to be a real challenge for Mechanicsburg to get them.
No doubt. That game is on Saturday night. That is at Piqua. And we have one of those teams that wouldn't have been in the playoffs if they had not expanded. The Anna Rockets, state champs a few years back. They are 500, 6-6, one of the few double-figure seeds left. They get second-seeded Allen East in Wapak on Saturday night.
I had a chance to see Anna play St. Henry, and it's about the middle of the season, and I was really impressed with how hard Coach Marino does a great job there. And to get this team where they're at right now, he's got to be they got to be flying high. And it's just every day you get another day of practice, you get another day to get better. And that's what this team has done. And they've got so much better as the years progressed. And Coach has done a great job with them. They play hard. They're well coached. They got some team speed. They got some size. And they got some kids that are starting to grow up. And I think they're going to be a tough out for Allen East. I really do.
Well, they got just stripped after the 2019 season when they won the Division VI title. And they had, Riley Hulskamp and Bart, the quarterback, Bixler. They lost so much. I think they had like 20 seniors on that team that graduated. When you lose that many seniors off a Division 6 or 7 football team, there's a lot of starting over there. They took their lumps last year. And I talked to Nick once last year, and he said, we're working hard. It's a process. And I saw him play against New Bremen earlier this year in like week 4. And it was a process that night for him, too, because they made some mistakes. They turned the ball over. They had some things they typically wouldn't do, and I don't think they're doing them right now. And they're going to be fine because they've got kids. They've tasted. They know what winning means there now, what it feels like, how it's appreciated. And, once you taste it once, Coach, you know this. You want to get back there as soon as you can. And the next class, next man up, I want that same privilege.
Yeah, so there's no doubt. And I said that this team's just getting better and better. And every day you can practice this time of the year, it really helps. And as you mentioned, the important thing is they've had a taste of it, and they're really excited about being there right now.
Okay.
When you talk about a team that's gotten a taste of it and is getting better and better, I've watched them the last 2 weeks. I really like what I see in Versailles. I know they're the 5th seed. I know they're playing the number 1 seed in Taft, and I don't mean this as any disparaging toward Taft, but you guys chatted about Coldwater and their weapons. That's what I really love about Ryan Jones' team is he's got a really experienced quarterback, a confident quarterback in Carson Bay. I don't know who you game plan for running the ball, Landon Henry or Jack Osborne. And if they need to go 3 deep, they can with Gabe Thompson. He comes in the 4th quarter and runs really hard. They've got a number of wide receivers, all the McEldownies, Noah and Chase and Eli. They've got tight ends. And, they have the mark of a good football team to me is I've seen this from Versailles the last 2 weeks. Touchdown runs on the goal line in between the tackles where the back is not touched. They can move people up front. And I don't know if they'll be able to move Taft, but Versailles is not what you would typically think a number 5 seed is looking at them on paper.
I saw them play St. Henry, and I'd have to start with that offense from defensive lines. They are solid. They've got size, Tayo is an outstanding offensive left tackle, plays inside on defense, and they are so well coached. Coach Jones has done a great job since he's been there. He's put together a great staff, and these kids are believing in what they're doing. And I'm with you. I'll tell you what, it's one of the best teams I've seen this year, and they are going to be a load to beat because they can do it all. They have excellent special teams, and that's what it takes this time of the year. They got the complete package, and they're going to be a real threat in Division 5. There's no doubt in my mind.
You know,
I
Tim,
like them. I like them because they have a certain calm about them. And I think that's a reflection of Ryan Jones and Daryl Jones, his dad. I mean, you knew him when he coached all those years at Wapakoneta. And I mean, when you have that kind of reflection that you can pass into your kids, and of course, these kids were together all last year. They played together last year. They got beat by one of the teams out of Cincinnati in the second round. Roger Bacon last year in the second round of the playoffs. And I think they filed that away. They have built upon that this year. Their motivation is to get just one, to get a step beyond where they were last year and take your chances. And we had Coach Jones on here last week, and he talked about the confidence and just that very thing of kids having been there before. They remember what happened to them last year, and maybe, the process of getting beyond that mentally or physically. And I like that about them. And I agree with everything you said. Their offensive, defensive line, that's where football is, success in football is predicated on, can you move people up front? And I haven't seen anybody, I'm like you, Tim, that's done it better this year than what Versailles has.
Tim, you mentioned their special teams. Chase McEldowney is their place kicker. He hit the upright with a point after the other night, late in their win, and that was the first extra point he had missed all season. Now, for a high school kicker, that's pretty special.
Yes, and that's what that's a great weapon. That's a great weapon to have, and kickoffs, get them down the field, make teams drive 80 yards, 70 yards, and I said we can just talk about them all night because I just love what I saw from them. And as you said, it's a great reflection on Coach Jones and his staff.
Well, let's flip up to Division 3. Tip City, Matt Burbacher's done a nice job. He's going to Sydney on Friday night, the 7th seed, 10-2 for the Red Devils. They're taking on Bellbrook, also 10-2. Bellbrook is the 3 seed.
Rematch of week one. Bellbrook knocked them off at home at Bellbrook in week one. And the only thing I will say about that is I remember talking to Matt and Charlie a little bit after the game, after week one. And, they said, well, we made some mistakes you can't make against a good football team. Well, veteran coaches are going to remind their players if they need to be reminded for the next 9 weeks. We can't do that. We have to be better. And I will say this about Tip City. That's one of those teams. And Anna's another one where you can categorically measure how much they have improved from week to week to week. It's not like Piqua that starts out, you knew they were going to be great on week one and just blow through people. I think Tip probably knew we have some area to grow from week one, and they have done that over the course of the 10 weeks, now 12 weeks.
I had a chance to see Bellbrook over the weekend. They played at Wapakoneta, and they happened to be on TV. I watched a little bit of that. I was amazed that offensively they're pretty good. And after I think they were 2-2 after week 4, averaging roughly about 40, 45 points a game. And they move the ball around. They can run the football, throw the football, and that's going to be a great football game Friday night. I'm really looking forward to seeing that with you, Sonny.
Well, they've got what people consider to be the best running back in the Southwest Buckeye League down there. That they've been in the SWBL for years. Their quarterback play is really good. And somebody wrote here this afternoon. We'll talk about that in a minute from the Reader Speaks questions. What's the difference at this time of year between one team and another? Your quarterback play. If you've got a guy that can go out there and make plays and keep the lid on the pot, without turning it over and do things like that, it all starts with that first snap, that first touch of the football. And they've done a good job with that at Bellbrook. They're a very, very highly appreciated football team.
They won that season opener 24-14. We'll see if Coach Burbacher and Tip can get that done in the rematch. Now let's move on up to Division II. Sonny, you've seen Piqua the last 2 weeks. Bill Neese's squad romped in week 1, 49-7, and a much tougher time with Withrow, 17-13. They pull it out. They'll be at Huber Heights on Friday night against Edgewood, a team that has not had a problem in the postseason. Edgewood's won its 2 games, 37-10 and 52-15. That's a matchup of the 1-seed Piqua and a 5-seed Edgewood.
Well, right on cue, a question from a reader named Rocco in Cincinnati who said, I read your story last week about Piqua and Withrow. What do you think was the biggest difference in the outcome, biggest difference in those 2 teams? Piqua won that game 17-13, and it was, as Bill Neese called it, trench warfare. That was tough. And, Piqua had blown people out all year, and I think I wrote pretty much had irrelevant second halves. This was highly relevant in the second half, Tim, because Piqua was behind 13-10 at halftime. Biggest difference, Rocco, if you're watching, would be quarterback play. Brady Hooley didn't have his best night, but he did come out and show the capability of throwing the ball. He wasn't one-dimensional like the young man was with Withrow, who struggled to throw the ball all night. He slung it. He didn't throw it. He just slung it, got rid of it. And Brady Hooley hit that one play in the fourth quarter down the sideline to set them up on the 11-yard line for the winning touchdown. He finally got the ball in the hands of Josiah Medley, and that one play, and he never gave up on the idea of throwing the ball. He missed 4 or 5 down the field prior to that, but he finally got that one throw in a close football game. He had the confidence to go out and make that play, and that was the difference in the ball game.
Now, as we move on up, Division II, we have one team in Columbus, Big Walnuts, playing Massillon, Washington. Interesting to me, Massillon, Washington, and Glenville are both in the Sweet 16, and those are 2 of the more, I guess they're more famous football programs in the state of Ohio. They'd be among the top 20. If you ask the average fan to name a program, he'd probably get around to naming Glenville and Massillon, Washington. Neither one of them's ever won a state title on the field. They've won lots of poll titles. Well, at least Massillon, Washington has, which I used to tease my friend Chris Spielman about all the time, that they were the paper tigers because they won every poll in the newspaper, but never on the field. So we'll see if Glenville and Massillon, Washington can get that done. In Division I, we've got, the Battle of Cincinnati is Moeller and Princeton, St. X and Lakota West. We've got some real barn burners, I think, coming up in Columbus on Friday night. Upper Arlington and New Albany are both 12-0. They play in one semifinal. We'll be covering that one. And then the Battle of Pickerington will be staged in Newark at White Field. Pick Central, Pick North. Pick North handed Central its only loss of the season early in the year without scoring an offensive touchdown, by the way. 13-10, I think, was that game. And then Marysville, which just is a machine, is taking on Toledo Whitmer. That game is at Bell Fountain. And the other semi in Division I, Region 2, is Springfield against Findlay. Findlay took out our friend Garen Stokes and Dublin Kaufman on Friday night. So we got some really good games. Tim, as I've said in the past recent weeks, the MAC has had a state champion 18 of the last 19 years. They've played for over the last 19 years. The MAC has played for a state football championship 37 times. And they're 27-10 in those games. 27-10.
There's a good chance it's probably going to happen again this year, with at least in 2 or 3 divisions. And it's definitely not a given. But if a betting man, I bet on 2 or 3 of those regions. You're going to have those divisions. We're going to have somebody coming out of that.
Well, right on cue. Here's a question for you, Coach. From Mac in Hancock County, who wrote, which of the 5 MAC schools still in the tournament do you think has the best chance of winning a state title? Marion, St. Henry, Versailles, Anna, and Coldwater. Mac, here's your question. Thanks for taking the time to write to us from Hancock County. Coach, talk about that.
Should we absolve Coach of the St. Henry part of that question? Because that puts him in can he take the fifth on that?
Well, you can absolve if you want, but it is what it is. The question was, and this came in, prior to tonight. So,
I look at that scenario, and as I said, I think there's we can have a state champ in all three divisions. I really do. And 7, 6, and 5. I don't know as much about 5 with Versailles scenario, but you got Kirtland looming in the wings in Division 5, and Versailles getting by the Cincinnati schools has always been a challenge for them. Division 6, Coldwater, oh Lord, I wouldn't look past them by any means, and they're just getting better and better. And they had some taste of some defeats this year, so they're going to be tough. And you get to in Anna, they're kind of the dark horse right now in there and so forth. And it's just great what Coach Marino's done. You get to Division 7, looking at St. Henry and Marion, and you're probably going to be nothing in slight, but it could be a collision course coming up next week. But they both got big games this week, and who's got the best chance to win? Hey, any of them can win. I'm not going to put my finger on any one of them. I'll let one of you guys do that, but there's a lot of good football teams out there.
I don't think, to answer his question, Mac, I don't think you can answer it the way you posed the question. I think Coach said, again, like 2014, and I think in 2015, again, they won 3 titles in 14. They had a chance to win it in 15. Again, I look at St. Henry. How many Division 6 teams in Ohio realistically has an Owen Layfeld? A 6'2", 210, 215-pound running back that just wears you out during the course, capable of carrying the ball 30, 35 times. Coach, you know that. Yes. Like that Putoff kid, Andy Putoff, back in 2006, the last time they won. There's not that many in Division 6 that can do that. Plus, they've got players around him. Their quarterback play has really improved with Bryce Brookhart over the years.
Getting better and better every week. There's no doubt.
Dalen Lange. I mean, you've got some kids there that can make plays around him. Their defense is solid, as Coach said. And those impact players, Peyton Ottey in Division 7. Now that David Holman and New Bremen is out of it, to Keith Brooks' dismay, now Peyton Ottey, is there a more impactful quarterback play, in Division 7 in Ohio than the way he's playing right now? That makes them certainly capable in Division 7. And we've talked enough already tonight about Division 5. If they get past LaSalle, that's a big hurdle for them on Saturday night for the Versailles Tigers. So to answer your question, Mac, which has the best chance of winning a state title? I don't know that you can just settle on one when you've got 5 teams. Anna, what I think would be a dark horse, but Coldwater, how do you even decide which player on Coldwater is the most impactful? Is it Jesse Myers, the big tight end? Is it the Schwederman, their fine split end player? Their quarterback on a given night, their running backs are solid. Their defense is, you never know really when you play Coldwater on a given night, except the fact they've got Chip Houghton on the sideline. As to what's going to bite you. So I'm not sure there's an answer to your question. Not when you're looking for one particular team. There's 3 or 4 teams there this year.
Well, the reason why I don't discount St. Henry is because even though they're a 6 seed, I saw them play Fort Fry. Fort Fry's a 1 seed in its region in Division 6. And I felt like watching that game. It was played, first of all, on one of the hottest days you'll ever play football. And I felt like St. Henry was a team that if they played Fort Fry, they'd beat them 8 out of 10 times. I just felt
Agreed.
Like St. Henry.
I thought so.
I would agree with that too.
And I'll tell you one thing, and I know that people will say you're saying this only because you cover them. I think if Milton Union played Eaton 10 times, Milton would beat them 7 times. I just think it's too bad for Milton that they didn't have Michael Elam in that game, and it's just too bad that their quarterback didn't have the kind of night he wanted. But getting back to St. Henry, you mentioned Owen Layfeld, and I don't remember this young man's name, but 52 for St. Henry, lineman. Is it
Matt Berkey?
52 or 57?
Matt Berkey.
One is like 6'5", 250,
52.
and athletic. And I remember watching him thinking, boy, there's not a coach in the state of Ohio in any division that wouldn't want that young man at defensive end. And St. Henry's got him. And you're going to have to deal with him playing offense against St. Henry. So 6 seed, people don't usually look at you, but They went right toe to toe with Fort Fry, and I felt they were the better team.
It's just going to be interesting. And the thing that right now is you got to stay healthy too. And weather's going to play a factor. You just never know what you're going to get in those cases. So you got to be able to run the football this time of the year. Yeah. And the kicking games are so important. So it's going to be a lot of fun these next few weeks. There's a lot of good football to be played yet.
What else do you have on your reader comments list there, Mr. Fulks?
Well, I got one more question here, and it's an excellent question. We were just talking about Tip City, and Dave and Troy wrote and said, what's the biggest thing you think Tip has going for it at this point? And we just talked about the fact that they have improved and grown from that week 1 loss to Bellbrook. And Dave, to your question, I would say success against a couple of unfamiliar opponents. And Coach, you can speak to this. When you get out of your league and you suddenly play a Kettering Alter, and the reputation that Ed Domsites has down there, he's won titles. They're always tough, and I think more than in years past, I have seen them be one and done in the playoffs for a long time at Tip City. They'd play a Doug Fry team, from St. Mary's, and you know how they played and how tough that was to beat them and what they did. And they're one and done against them and teams from out of the area that they're unfamiliar with. Trotwood, they're not unfamiliar with them, but they had Trotwood on the ropes a couple of years and could not get it done with them. Now they've come in with a couple of unfamiliar teams, notably Kettering Alter last week, beat them, came from behind in the fourth quarter to do it. I think success against an unfamiliar opponent that you just don't know. It's not Greenville anymore. It's not Stebbins. It's not some of these teams like Butler that you're accustomed. You know them personally. I think that has a lot to do with your psyche going in, and that's the biggest thing they've got going for them going forward. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. And also, I look back at their 2 losses and believe Bellbrook and Piqua. Mm-hmm. That's 2 pretty darn good football teams.
Really good teams.
Yes. And Coach Burbacher built off of those 2 losses. Mm-hmm. And I think a big wild card with Tip City is Coach Burbacher and his staff. They do a great job there. And he's got these kids believing in what they're doing. And I think that's going to be one of the better ball games of the weekend, this Bellbrook and Tip City on Friday night. I'm really looking forward to that.
Tim, well, the other thing, if you were playing a team in the playoffs, Tim, that you had already played during the regular season, would you rather have beaten that team or would you rather have lost to that team going into the rematch?
That's a good question. Well, you never want to lose. You never want to lose, number one. But secondly, it's so difficult to beat a team a second time. And Tip's got that going for him also in this regard here. It's just difficult. It really is to beat somebody a second time.
That's what I'd rather be in Matt's shoes now. You'd like to win that regular season game, but once that's done, if you have to play somebody again, I'd rather play them having lost to them the first time, because no matter what that opposing coach is telling his guys about what kind of a threat they are, you're thinking, well, I already beat these guys once.
Yeah, but I think another thing that you can't overlook with Tip, I think they're healthy. I think you want to go in that with Cade Everhart, their great running back and linebacker, who is he's a football machine. He's the epitome of a football player. You want him healthy, and as far as I know, he's healthy. You want Liam Peronsky, your quarterback, healthy. You want Rendler, your fine split, or your wide receiver. You want those guys healthy, your playmakers healthy. As far as I know, they're as good as they've been all year, and that's really important when you're 13 weeks into the season.
All right, let's end tonight with a couple of questions here that I want to pose to you guys. We have 7 divisions, and we have 4 regions in each division. So we have 28 regions in the state of Ohio, correct?
Correct.
28. In how many of those regions do you think we have a regional field of the top 4 seeds? So a chalk region, no upsets out to the regional level. So we've got a 1, a 2, a 1 play and a 3. No, a 1 play and 4 and a 2 play and 3. In how many regions do you think we have that out of 28?
I'm going to guess 16.
And Mr. Fulks, what do you say?
I would have said 12.
7 is the answer.
All right.
Only 7. And they come in division. There's 1 in Division 3. There is 1 in Division 4, 1 in Division 5, and 2 each in Division 6 and Division 7. So nobody in Division 1 and 2, their regional was as the seeds said. Now, out of those 28 regions, how many regions do you think we have a Final Four of 4 undefeated teams?
Half dozen, maybe.
That would be my guess. 5, 6 in that area.
The answer is 1. And that is in Division 5, Region 17. And Tim, you mentioned them earlier. Kirtland is the number 1 team in that region. They are amazing. Defending state champion with a running clock last year against Ironton. Garrettsville Garfield is the 4. They are also 12-0. South Range is 12-0. They're the 2. And Sugar Creek Garaway is the number 3, and they are also 12-0.
Let me throw a little. I just want to throw something here in regards to that region and South Range. Jeff Starkey, who used to coach at St. Henry. Sonny, you remember Jeff?
Yes, I do.
He has 2 boys playing for South Range. A junior playing linebacker, fullback, and a freshman's their kicker. So that's kind of. And
hey, I want to, before we get off here tonight, I want to throw a little love out there to the Jackson Ironmen down in Jackson County. Had a great win last Friday night. The division, I think they're Division 4, Division 5, something like that. But they're very excited about they're down there. And somebody wrote into me that watches our podcast and said, "Hey, how about a little mention for our kids down here and what they're getting done?" And so good on you, the Ironmen of Jackson High School down there. And then, you mentioned Ironton a moment ago, and they're right back in it. They got a big game again this Saturday night with who? You got that in front of you there?
I can probably find it. You know what region they're in? Would they be?
Do they play Wheelersburg?
They do. They play Wheelersburg. That's exactly who they play.
They play Wheelersburg. Yeah,
Wheelersburg. They'll be favored. They'll be favored to win that game.
Yep, Ironton 11-1, Wheelersburg 9-3.
Even without Reed Carrico, they're going to be they're going to be favored to win that game.
Playing that game in Portsmouth. So there you go.
Sure is. Big weekend.
Reminder again, visit Canton.com is what you click on. They're in all the Press Pros, high school sports, and Ohio State sports content. Click on that Visit Canton.com banner. Get your discount offers for your lodging, your hotels, your restaurants. Get your reservations now. It's going to be a great weekend at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. We appreciate our partnership with them. We're really looking forward to that weekend. Tim, that was one of the most fun weekends I had last year, going to the state football finals with you and Sonny. And I was ready for another round as soon as we left last year at Paul Brown Tiger Stadium. So what are we, 4 weeks away?
Yes.
Yeah, 4 weeks away.
Yeah.
And that'll be here before we know it. So click on visitcanton.com, everybody, and get yourself hooked up for that one. With that, Mr. Folks, you have anything you want to say before we click the off button on the broadcast?
No, I think we're pretty much good. I'll cue the out music.
All right. And we want to admonish our friend Truman that it is time to go to bed.
Always.
And enjoy you guys tonight. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for watching. Thank our sponsors if you're out and about and you see their ads on Press Pros. And with that, if you're watching on a replay, thanks so much for that. We'll talk to you again next week here on the Press Pros Huddle.